You're very welcome back to the Keith Andrews Show, first one of the season. Joining me this week is Joe Molloy and Stephen Kelly. Lads, thanks for coming. We're going to be on every Thursday, 12:30 on our usual platforms of Twitter, Facebook and YouTube. We're going to have regular contributors this season, as well as Joe and all the off-the-ball team. We're going to have Stephen Kelly in every few weeks, whether that be in studio or Skype. We'll have Liam Mackey from the Irish Examiner. Damien Delaney's going to keep up to date on all things League of Ireland, and a few more to be confirmed in the next few weeks. So it's deadline day. I'm not quite sure the clubs overestimated this, underestimated this, maybe with the World Cup involved, but there's a lot of clubs not quite got to grips with this. Your old club being a prime example, Spurs.
Yeah, they seem to be way off the pace at the moment when it's come to like the big clubs. Man City obviously haven't really touched anybody, but would you really touch anybody with the squad they have and the team, how well it did last year? But looking at Tottenham, they just seem to be, they needed to improve a little bit, they needed to get something a little bit more of a spark, and they haven't got it, and maybe that is down to the World Cup. It has probably come, they wouldn't have judged how close it was going to finish to when this was going to happen, and whether players could get over the line, or their concentration is going to be on playing the World Cup because it's such a huge tournament. And also, if you have a good World Cup, then your value goes up, so clubs are going to be looking at that as well before they let someone go.
I thought on paper it was a good idea, because there's nothing worse as a player to a degree, but certainly as a manager. You've got this squad of players, you're working through pre-season, and then next of all the league kicks off, and then you constantly, the papers every day, agents on the phone, I might lose Joe, I might lose Stephen, where do I go then, the knock-on effect. So in principle, to stop it before the season starts, I think is a good thing. But in the reality, and we've already alluded to the World Cup, I don't think it's worked out that way, do you?
No, it hasn't. And you can see how, 14 of the 20 clubs voted for this. So there's, the FIFA deadline is 31st of August. Well, we're going to bring it forward and we'll have our squad, and we're not going to lose players halfway through a season. I guess what they didn't think through, or what they didn't talk through, is the fact that everybody else in Europe would say, well, we're not doing that.
Yeah.
So, you can do that, but we're not doing that. So all they've done is they've stopped themselves from buying players. Like, they can still lose all their players. Like, Chelsea, Courtois is gone now, but Chelsea could lose Courtois next week. They can't bring anyone in because Real Madrid are sitting there saying, well, if you guys want to do that, that's fine. So, in hindsight now, I think the 5 or 6 clubs who said we're not voting for this are sitting around saying, like, we told you so. What did you think was going to happen here? So all they've done is completely disadvantage themselves. Anytime they go to a European club now, especially the last week as the English deadline comes into focus, the European clubs are sitting there saying, well, you can double what you want to, what you're offering here, or whatever, because we have all the leverage, you have none. So, it's up to you. It's been one of the great, I would say, the phone calls behind the scenes between English clubs. I would say there is a war zone going on, because I can't think of a league shooting itself in the foot like this before.
Oh, to be a fly on the wall in one of those conversations would be amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Do you have any deadline day stories?
I've got, one, I was at Birmingham. We were just been relegated to the Championship, and it was February, it was end of January, and Stoke came in for me literally last minute. I was supposed to go, it wasn't done in time. Probably shouldn't be saying this, wasn't done in time, but there was bad snow for England. There was like an inch, and everything came to a standstill, as always. And the FA pushed it out for a few hours extra because they said things couldn't get done and people couldn't get the place in and go. So I ended up getting it done literally the next day, went up and did a medical and stuff, but that was like 24 hours after the window closed.
The thing that people don't realise maybe is that was last minute. There'd be players in canteens, training grounds all across the country waiting on that button to go to wherever it is, club, and obviously with technology now, it's not even a fax.
No, that's not,
I left the canteen at Blackburn. I've been waiting since 9 o'clock in the morning, got in on deadline day in January to go, and initially I thought it was going to be to Wigan on the Roberto Martinez. West Brom had an interest, but then there's the knock-on effect of if they get someone out the door, then they can get someone in. I didn't leave the canteen until 7:30 on deadline night in Blackburn, when eventually it was go. So all day long I'm going in, trying to see the manager, kicking doors down, saying I'm going to do this, that and the other messes.
Force it through, basically.
Yeah, to force it through.
That's,
so
it's not like you to lose the head.
No.
Well, Joe, I've very rarely done it in here, so yet. So eventually it goes, you're flying down the M6, getting it done, on the way, you're on the phone, sorting out, look, deals, blah, blah, blah. In the end, when I got down there, the deal was pulled in terms of the length of it the figures were right, but in terms of the length of the contract, I think they already had an inkling. Roy Hodgson was the manager. I think they had an inkling he was going to be leaving at the end of the season and didn't want a player that maybe the next manager didn't want. But that's how soon it can happen. Obviously, it's 5 o'clock today, but there'll be players all around the country today not knowing what's going to happen or if it happens.
I can't think of any other industry that has this level of madness, considering the amounts of money you're talking about. Like
crazy.
multi-million pound. Well, each individual's a CEO of their own company at this stage, and then these multi-million pound businesses, and it's just wildness. Like, I wanted to. The vast majority of moves that will happen today, I presume they've been in the pipeline. I presume players have known they're coming. There's not many players, I presume, who would walk in to breakfast in the canteen at 9 o'clock in the morning and somehow unexpectedly be at a different club by that evening.
You'd have some idea, wouldn't you? But the Stoke one for me, literally I got a phone call and I had no idea it was coming.
Really?
It was literally out of the blue.
Not much time to think.
No, it was like, what do I do? I think what made it easier for me was that Stoke was close to where I was, so I wasn't, and I was only for 6 months, and then they were in the Premiership at the time, so I was going up a league, which was fantastic. But that did literally happen. I got a phone call and I had to make a decision within about 20 minutes of what I wanted to do.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't that hard because I was going up a league, and that made it easier. But if I was moving to, if you're going to across the board move, moving laterally, basically, it would have been a lot harder.
You've no time to find out, is the manager a good guy, what the players are like, the culture of the club, none of that stuff.
No.
I think you're right. I think the majority, you kind of know, you sense if you're not in the plans, or if you've done really well and you want to climb that ladder. But I've had one similar. I started the first 2 games of the season for Bolton, didn't particularly get on with the manager at the time, who was Dougie Friedman, so I wasn't pushing for a move. I was content where we were living, all the rest of it. Wasn't entirely content at Bolton at the time, but I wasn't pushing a move. Played the first 2 games of the season, Saturday, Tuesday, Wednesday off, Thursday came in, trained as normal, got home. That afternoon my agent phoned me, Bolton have agreed a season-long loan deal for you to go to Brighton. And I said, well, I was in there 2 hours ago. What's the crack there? Like, how did that come about? They were obviously wanting me out to release funds to get somebody else in. Didn't get a phone call off anybody at Bolton. Suited me because wasn't really feeling that Brighton were a better team. We finished in the playoffs. Bolton nearly got relegated. So it was a no-brainer. But I went into work that day thinking, that's...
Yeah,
but
you wouldn't want to be sensitive, would you, in football?
No, God, no. You have to have a thick skin, don't you, just to get on with it.
You're all pieces of meat.
We are, literally,
yeah. But listen, we want to have a look at 2 of your former clubs. So Spurs, a lot has been in the press about the lack of activity, and Fulham obviously been very, very active. If you look at Spurs, we've had no signings, and Fulham, we've got quite a few in, and a couple of in particular have really impressed me. Seri, who's coming from Nice, Alfie Mawson had a really good year at Swansea in a struggling season. Schürrle, who we obviously know from his Chelsea days, and he signed a 2-year loan deal, which is slightly strange.
It's a random one.
But stay on Spurs for a minute. Are you surprised? Look, they've got to balance things up, so obviously with moving into the new stadium. They've got a team that a lot of the players are coveted by all the big clubs. I think they've done well to hang on to the majority of them. Alderweireld, obviously the one where big teams are sniffing with the contract situation. But are you surprised they brought nobody in? Jack Grealish is the one they've been heavily linked with. Don't think it's going to happen.
No, it is. For a team that have been pushing, getting so close to being in that top level, pushing for a Premiership title, to not go for it again is, obviously they have got the stadium, and that's a huge financial burden for them. But Daniel Levy, he's a man that likes to balance the books a bit. He doesn't always want to go over the top and be spending huge. So, on that sense, it's not a surprise. But for the progression of the club and the way they see them going and the direction they want to go in, you look at Liverpool, you look at what Man City did the last few years. They've improved their team, and they've brought in players that have competed or pushed for a place now or got themselves into the team. And Tottenham they have a great squad, and they've got a very good team, and it's a young squad as well, youngish. But they needed something else, I think. And Jack Grealish is a talent, and do
you think he's worth? So you trained a lot at Aston Villa last year. I've obviously watched him a lot in the last year. I even watched his game on Monday night and against Hull, and certainly you couldn't question his attitude with maybe a move in the background where we've seen some players refuse to train, not put it in, try and forward. He hasn't been that type of player. Do you think he's worth 35 million?
It's a hard one.
In today's market.
In today's market, he probably is, because of the market's gone crazy, and people, like I said, the goalkeeper's just on for 76 million, and have we ever even heard of this guy before? Not really. So in that terms, he probably is. And as if you're just purely going on what his talent is and what he's capable of doing, yes. Will he do it all the time and will he achieve it? I'm not too sure. Is Tottenham the right club for him? I'd say yes, because they have the ability to bring younger players on and play a style of football that would suit him. But is he going to be the answer to what they need? I'm not too sure. It's a really hard one to call, but he is a talent and he's definitely got potential. And it would be a fantastic move for him. Whether it's the one Tottenham need to push them into to winning the league, I don't know.
I think it's a better move for him than Tottenham.
Yeah.
It's a great move for him to jump that many rungs in the ladder, to work with Pochettino, to really develop. He had a few lost years. Bruce talked about the culture at the Villa dressing room.
Yeah,
wasn't
very
great
different.
at times, so that was an issue. So you train with someone, you really have a feel for, you know what he's seeing, all that. You get that instinctive feel for just how much vision he has and everything he's doing on the pitch. Where might he be short, or what are the issues with him?
I think if you were going along to, so basically if you sold him for 35 million from a championship team, could you replace what he gives to that team? Would you replace his dribbling ability and how nice he looks to watch?
Yeah.
No. Can you replace his statistics of how many goals he scores and how many chances he creates? Yes.
Okay.
Doesn't score enough goals from the start. Assists wise, a different kettle of fish, and he is the catalyst in the team.
He's always the one before
go-to guy. Yeah, the supplier of that pass.
He's the supplier of the pass before the cross almost. So that's hard to replace. But if you were going just statistically on, if
you can easily.
If you're replacing goals and assists, for 35 million championship, you would think you would easily replace that. But would you replace him as a person and how good he looks on the ball and how much the fans love him and all that sort of stuff that goes with it?
And what's that worth to you as a teammate? I mean, because we all know how silky he looks on the ball. Are there times in a game where you're 1-0 down and you're like, okay, that's lovely, Jack, and you're 35 yards from goal and you've beaten two men and passed it back?
He relieves the pressure on the team so much. You know, when you're under pressure, you're under the caution. Aston Villa are that type of team where at times they do have to soak up pressure. They don't dominate games. No. So he is the one where, if I was playing next to him like Glenn Whelan does, give him the ball, give him the ball in a tight area. He'll do that little jinky shake of the hips, get past somebody, the picture opens up, or he buys fouls. Within the space of, I think it was the first 45 minutes, he was fouled 5 times. He's constantly just buying free kicks for
that's worth a huge amount. If he moved to Spurs and played played 20 games across the league, they'd dominate quite a lot of games. He'd start scoring more goals wouldn't he?
He would get more chances assists. And he'd get more assists because he's on a better standard team. He's with better players that can give him the ball in better positions, which he does have an ability to find very good positions, like off the shoulder players in little pockets and behind the front too. And he's not going to be found all the time at Villa because they don't have enough possession to draw teams out and then get the ball into him.
What's he like when you kick him?
He gets up.
Doesn't react.
He doesn't react. He doesn't react at all.
I think this is the maturity that we're seeing him though, and everyone's going on about John Terry last year, what he did on the pitch, what a great sign he was. I think it was more off the pitch, what he brought to the team. Look, this is how you act as an ultra professional, and learning off the likes of him. He had good pros around, the likes of Glenn Whelan, Mile Jedinak, Alan Hunt. They had a core to the dressing room. They got rid of a lot of the players that were signing just for financial reasons, Aston Villa.
I think you have to give a lot of that to Steve Bruce though.
Steve,
I've obviously worked with him quite closely over years, and he has the ability to, he might not be tactically the most amazing manager, he might not do things that you want, but his one-to-one management skills and trying to get the best out of a player and tell him what he needs to get the best out of him is very good.
Right.
And obviously Brucey would have had that with someone like Ferguson. He was probably the best at doing that. So his ability to tell Jack how much he was needed by the club and how much, I suppose, put a bit more weight on his shoulders and what they needed from him.
And what he's doing away from the training ground
exactly,
as well, how he's living his life, whereas, look, we've all been there. You were a lot better when you were younger than I was. But the nightlife, going out, the lads' holidays, they seem to all been, well, certainly not cut out, but minimised because of it, good people he has around.
Just whether they're bright.
I want to touch on Fulham a little bit before we move on. Seen them a lot last year, played the best football along with Wolves without a shadow of a doubt in the league. They've added very, very well, I think, and I didn't anticipate this in the transfer market. Let's not forget as well, Mitrovic as well. Also come in. I didn't think they would get Mitrovic. I thought he may well be out of their reach. But for me, they've added well. The way they play, a lot of fans will enjoy the way they're going to play. But defensively, I think they'll have to improve because they're not going to dominate the ball as much as they did last year.
That's the issue, isn't it? When you're in the Championship and you play your way out of that league, can you play your way in the Premiership? It's a different ballgame because teams will cut you up, they'll cause problems, and your defensive unit has to be a lot more solid than what they probably were. Teams did get at them, they did score goals against them, they create chances, and even you can see against Villa had opportunities, but no, they're a good side, and they've brought in well. They've not done anything crazy. They've kind of stayed within their means, and they brought in free signings that have been proven track records in the league they've played in.
That playoff final, I don't know whether you've seen it because you're a little bit of a snob, John, aren't you? You only really focus on the Premier League.
Top 10 in the Premier League.
Top 10. Let's get it right. So Fulham against Aston Villa. We all know the finances at stake. What we probably don't realise, or a lot of people don't realise, is what happened to Villa over the summer. The fact that they were crumbling until the takeover happened, and then they've got a few quid at their disposal to be able to be competitive again. Fulham, if they hadn't got through that team would have disintegrated.
Apart,
Gone.
Absolutely
Kearney,
decimated.
Fredericks did leave. Honestly, it was a huge moment. Everyone focused on Villa and what might happen to them. But Fulham, that catalyst now to be able to go and sign those players that we've just mentioned on screen. Huge moment.
Huge. I was happy to see them back as well.
Yeah,
like Craven Cottage.
What do you think when you think of Fulham?
Oh, I just love the cottage. And I think of the Michael Jackson statue, unfortunately. I'm old enough to think like Kevin Keegan when they first started making a bit of a splash. Yeah. I just really like the ground. I love watching Fulham play. They tend to play good football more often than not. Like they had some great players down the years. Saha, that kind of team, that era was really good. Like I'd say it was a lovely club to play for. That home ground, you know, go out and play some nice football, maybe win, maybe not.
Fans.
Go for some vol-au-vents in a nice hotel down the road, nice aperitif, you know. That's what I think of when I think of Fulham.
I think that's what everybody thinks.
Not far off.
No, not far off. No, it is. It's a fantastic club to play for, and it's a really well-run club. The training ground's excellent, and when I was there, we were so successful, probably more so than what we were probably deemed to be able to achieve. But like the run in Europe, and when we beat Juventus in those games, they were amazing to be a part of, and to be at a club like that where the expectation wasn't that high, but then when you went above what the expectation was, it was really it's a fantastic place to be, and it's a great club, and it is lovely to see them back because they're just a team everybody likes. I think it's funny, there was a statistic about them, about their season ticket holders, that a lot of their season ticket holders aren't actually Fulham fans. It was because at the time it was probably one of the cheapest season tickets, and people just liked going to.
It's a nice stadium to go to.
Let's go down the river and watch Fulham play against the teams they probably did support,
and then vol-au-vents afterwards and smoke a pipe.
Right, the team that there's Wacko Jacko outside. You're not a fan of the statue, Joe?
I'm a huge fan.
Oh right,
is it still there?
No, they got rid of it, didn't they?
I think I got rid of
I think.
Where is it now?
It's in
Alphoid's basement somewhere.
That was, an odd day when that news came through.
Yeah, that was an odd day. It was. Sure, we were there the day he turned up for a few weeks after unveiling him. He came to the game. He's been
escorted. Oh, Jackson did. Did he come into the dressing room?
He was on the pitch beforehand. And no, he didn't sing. It would have been nice to moonwalk across the halfway line.
What are you making of that? You must be sitting there going, the world's mad.
Oh yeah, no, it is crazy. It's
What was Al Fayed like?
He was very good. He was eccentric, but he was very good. And the time we were in Europe, the stuff he used to do with us was amazing. At the time, he still owned Harrods, and that was connected to the club.
Nice discount there, wasn't it?
Yeah, nice discount you used to get.
Really?
Yeah.
So what are we talking?
33%.
Oh, that's rubbish.
Rubbish.
Should be getting 50%. He owns the place.
Still a nice little touch.
So when you say eccentric, like would he come down to the dressing room?
Yeah, he'd come in the dressing room and like after a good win sometimes. Well, in Europe, he'd come in and like give the players hampers and different things like this.
From Harrods?
Yeah, from Harrods. So you get like a big hamper come through, and it was really vol-au-vents. Yeah, it's a nice wine and stuff. It was interesting, but it was like I said, it's a great club, and he had even his the medical at Fulham when he was in charge was so basically it was almost like a 3 or 4 day thing. It was unbelievable.
Right. Was he?
Oh, it was crazy, yeah. Right. So you go literally jumping through hoops to get through everything, and at the end of it, you had to go to see his personal physician that would go through all the scans. I can't think of his name now. That would go through all your scans, discuss everything with you, check everything out that you had injuries or was, and then he would call Alfred to confirm whether or not he gave permission for you to sign.
So then he got final say.
He had final say, yeah.
Did he?
Wow.
Yeah. So that's how he used to go down, because he was very, I suppose, pedantic about what he used to do, but it was he
didn't want to waste his money.
No, didn't want to waste his money. Yeah, obviously he's a businessman. Yeah.
Fair enough. Right, we need to move on. We're already way over. Wolves, the team that won the division last year convincingly in the end. Huge finance at their disposal. You'll enjoy watching them next year. And you were talking about top 10. I think this team has the capability to finish in the top 10, mid-table. So I don't see them being in a relegation fight. You see the players they brought in again. Again, it's heavily Portuguese influence from
very technical.
Very much helped by Mr. Mendes, the super agent. Matinho, obviously, I think he's the third highest cap holder for Portugal. Patricio, they're taking advantage of the uncertainty in Sporting Lisbon. And Traore, who has all the potential in the world, he can infuriate you though. Don't think he's the brightest, and the way that the team is set up, it's in a 3-4-3 system. They've got magnificent players already in the team. There's a couple of places I think they're lacking. We've just looked the team up here. Patricio, I think, will start in goal. The back three, I'm unsure of. I really am. Last weekend, they played a last pre-season friendly, and the right-sided centre-half was Saiz for the first half, who's a midfielder, left-sided midfielder, left-footed midfielder. And then Bennett came on at half-time. So that would be an area of concern. Matinho, Neves, Joe, if you haven't seen him yet, keep an eye out from this year, because he is an absolute player. He should have been in the Portuguese squad.
Yeah, he should have been.
For the World Cup.
Who would you liken him to?
He's an orchestrator. So he'll drop off deep and he'll play diagonal 56-yard balls onto a sixpence. But he has that knack of taking the sting out of a game by dropping the shoulder, creating that space. He's also got a little bit of a nasty streak in him. Whether he'll be able to... He liked 3-4-3. Whether he'll be able to play that in the Premier League, I'm not so sure. That'll quickly turn into a back five at times.
It'll be a back five, yeah.
And then he'll be outnumbered in midfield. So whether he'll go with... And they're light top end of the pitch as well, I think. I think they needed to add a quality centre forward. They were linked with Andre Silva from AC Milan. Again, Portuguese, shock. Again, not sure about him, but I think they'll do well this year. Have you seen much of them?
I've seen a lot of them, yeah. I think they played... Last year they were the best team comfortably, and they played the best football. Well, Fulham played great football, but they played...
Two of them.
Very good
Slightly
football.
different. They would be more direct. Fulham more of a passing team, possession based.
They were go for the throat type thing, weren't they? They were they would literally go at you from the get-go and were relentless with it. But again, where they've added, like Traore said, his pace is blistering. And if you're playing against him, you're thinking, oh God, I don't want to play this guy. But does he deliver all the time? Is he consistent enough? That's the issue, isn't he?
It's the next step.
It's the next step. And in the system they're playing, with having three up front and a four midfield, often he's going to be expected to be, if they're basically going to be a back five, he's going to have to be that winger, covering a overlapping fullback. Would he do that? I'm not too sure. So it's going to be...
It'd be nice if him and Matt Doherty were able to forge a nice
it would be nice.
It's a big season for him, and it's one that he's had to kind of take every step of the ladder, hasn't he? He'll be frustrated that he didn't get more game time with the Irish friendlies during the summer. Should have been brought on in one of the games. I think it was the USA game. Played a back three. I was crying out for Seamus Coleman to go right-sided centre half, a little bit like what England did with Kyle Walker and Doherty. Could they? So then it turns into it.
Would you have done that with Doherty instead and put Coleman out there? Because Doherty, has he played centre back before, or is he a bit?
No, I think he's
more.
The best part of his game is going
forward. He's gone forward,
But like I said, he's going to have to defend into a five at times.
So they will, definitely, especially when they play against the top teams.
Yeah. The other team that got promoted, Cardiff. Not expecting too much from him. Drastically overachieved to get into the Premier League. The finances they had at their disposal. Struggled for signings. Greg Cunningham's obviously come in, so hopefully we'll see a lot of game time out of him. They've gone for two of the better players out of the Championship in Josh Murphy and Bobby Reid. But I think it's going to be a constant struggle for him this year.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be tough. It's the way Warnock sets his team as well. We had him at Rotherham for that season. He's an old school approach, and he wants you to be solid, resilient, and then if you can nick a goal in the Premiership, that doesn't work that often.
Likes a day off.
Likes a day off. If you do well from...
Likes a lot of days off.
Well, for him, you won't see him from Monday to Thursday. Especially
Saturday to Thursday.
Yeah, especially from when he was living that far away. Cardiff is probably slightly closer to where he is. I think he's based in Bristol, maybe. I think he's
South Coast, isn't he?
Yeah. So I'm not too sure, but he, if you do well for him, he's a good manager. As in, he'll give you time off and he'll look after you. But the team he has is...
What about, based on the famous halftime rant that's on YouTube? What about when, and I use the word when, what about when they're 8 games without a win?
Well, this is an issue for him because he's had to evolve, obviously, from the style of management. So days off and certain old school ways still remain. And if you look at his recruitment, he kind of brings in players that haven't been loved for a couple of years and they've lost their way. People like Sol Bamba last year, Junior Hoylett gets the best out of him because he gives them the arm around the shoulder. But those type of team talks, they're a thing of the past. They really are. Like, I've heard some of the things he said from the sideline onto a pitch, maybe going back 10, 15 years ago when he was Sheffield United manager. We had a nice little healthy rivalry with them when I was at Wolves. some of the things that came out of his mouth were nothing short of horrendous. Stuff he's shouting onto the pitch and things like that. So that's why he had that reputation. But those team talks, you can't do that anymore. Players don't react.
Has he stopped doing it, I wonder?
I would imagine so. I think the odd time he'll still get the hair dodge. I don't know where you got it.
Yeah. Well, just as a team, he would. If he came in and things weren't going particularly well, he would, he'd let loose and go. But it was.
That'll get old after 5 games.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, especially in the team they have. They look like they're going to struggle. I mean, obviously, we don't have a crystal ball here, but they look like they're going to struggle, and they don't look like they've brought enough quality in to be able to compete. Will he go that way? He can't.
Someone will have to say to him, look, if you do this, you're going to be doing it week after week after week, and it's just going to be
a broken record.
And I think he's clever. He's a quite intelligent man when it comes to. So he'd understand that he'd be fighting a losing battle. He's just going to be giving out to the players every week, and he's not going to get any response from them. I think he knows that I'm going to have to love these. I'm going to have to build them up a little bit at times, because they're going to be feeling low enough if you're not winning. So he's going to have to be the one to try and create a bit of an atmosphere and make them, like when he came into us, we were getting relegated, and it did change around, but he put his arm around the players that need to be loved. He basically lambasted the defenders all the time, because he just wants them to
just defend.
Okay.
That's it. So he basically wants you to be ugly defender and kick in and tackle and not do anything else. So he treats you differently to the attacking players, but you know what he's doing. Like you kind of, if you don't, you couldn't really take it. You couldn't really take offence to it. Because you've been around enough managers to know he's doing that because that's his style and that's what he wants to achieve. So it'd be interesting to see this year, though.
Yeah.
And he'll definitely have to be a bit more PC in the sideline.
Yeah.
Especially with all those cameras and
microphones.
Yeah, microphones. Yeah.
All right, we're going to move on to the top 6 now. OTB AM recently caught up with Guardian journalist Daniel Harris. Let's have a little listen, see what he had to say. We got the audio. We'll have it in a second. So we're going to focus on the top 6. Some of them we've already mentioned, done some good business. I certainly think Man City will be the team still to beat. Liverpool invested heavily in the transfer market.
And they've been quite forensic as well.
Yeah.
It's not like they've spent 177 million on 10 players. There's nothing worse than when Spurs did that for a while with the Gareth Bale money, different teams.
And absolutely wasted.
They've just done the right thing. Like Louis van Gaal did it a couple of years ago. Spend. Suddenly United spent 200 million on like players who were just not going to make any impact.
Never going to knit together.
Not really. There's too many of them. Yeah. Whereas I love how almost forensic they've been. We need a goalkeeper, we're getting one. We needed a centre half, we'll get Van Dijk. And just pay enough money to fill those positions.
Yeah. Daniel Harris is now ready. Let's hear what he had to say.
I don't think these people have reputations. When the day that the Glazers bought United, they're left in a police van. They've taken all manner of abuse. They don't speak to the supporters. They very rarely turn up at Old Trafford. They're not bothered by what supporters think of them, because if they were, they'd have been gone a long time ago. And unfortunately, they're pretty well insulated from what supporters think, because they're wherever they are enjoying their money. And so, no, I don't really think they care at all about their reputation. And I think that you see also, and it's dissimilar but similar, you look at Daniel Levy at Tottenham. Daniel Levy's reputation is about making money for Joe Lewis and Enoch. It's not about what Tottenham win, because they don't win anything. But what they do is they're a well-run club who are making money, who are improving, and that looks good for Daniel Levy. These guys are businessmen. They're not sportsmen. So their success, their sporting glory, is in a profit and loss sheet. It's in a balance sheet. It's in accounts. It's not into delivering value. It's not in what's on the honours board at the club, because that's what players do. That's not what these guys do. And the Glazers bought United because they saw that relative to American sport, United was undervalued. It was this huge worldwide brand. It was undervalued. They saw lots of ways that they could
So Spurs, obviously nobody in the building. We've already touched on those. Stay on Man City for a second. Mahrez, the marquee signing. What do you think of that as a signing? Obviously it didn't happen in January when they really wanted it to. Did they need much more?
I was kind of... I like him. Don't get me wrong, he's a very good, very talented player. Like, player of the year. Did they need him? I don't know. Where does he fit in there?
Bernardo Silva's been playing a little bit more narrow as a 10. He has the capabilities to do that. We've obviously got Sané and Sterling as the two out-and-out wingers.
It struck me as a quite expensive, luxurious FA Cup player and injury crisis player, and He'll be on the bench a lot, won't he?
I almost thought it was
imagine
a
so.
bullet dodge for them when he didn't go through in January, and
Yeah,
I thought
for him,
I thought they wouldn't go through with it.
Revisit it then.
Yeah, I
in
thought
the summer.
Guardiola would have. I don't know whether he's just committed to it, so he's gone on. But the way the season finished for him, I would have just thought that wouldn't have been what they needed.
But Spurs would go in for him or someone like that.
Yeah.
You know, City. I would. Okay. No, this is not a problem I'm going to have anytime soon. I wouldn't have gone if I was him.
Yeah.
I just
Wouldn't have gone if you're Mahrez.
no, because
I
Oh
would've.
no, you would have. Yeah.
think of the
Why,
black
Joe?
because he's not going to play. Like it's a bit like, remember, you know, the Scott Parker types will go to Chelsea and
Yeah,
disappear.
yeah.
Like this is just a black hole for him now.
Quarter
He's
Chelsea
gone.
last year. Yeah.
Like I think you have to have an element of realism and pragmatism.
But you also have that angle of ambition and playing for it.
For some manager like
coach
that.
like
Yeah.
Guardiola.
Like Guardiola might
and
swing me.
The
Yeah,
Premier League, winning it,
And-
contesting in Europe.
Are you winning it when he's won it already as one of their marquee players with Leicester?
Yeah.
Is he going to? What's he going to do for City this year?
He's not going to be a marquee player. He's never going to be.
But is he going to be in their 11?
When it comes to the crunch for the big games, I don't think so.
No,
no.
I don't think
think
so
it'll be
either.
Sterling, Sané, and then Jesus or Aguero as that front three. But look, injuries happen. Would he get in ahead of Bernardo Silva? For me, 100%.
Yeah, definitely ahead of
He's
Bernardo
next in line ahead of
Okay.
those two. So yeah, it's. But for Man City, I'm with you. I think maybe someone younger, but
Yeah.
he obviously wanted to finish
wanted-
that because he
yeah,
has bought young in the main, hasn't he? To be fair to him, Guardiola, and nurtured them.
Yeah, I think the prospect, if you were Mahrez, like, there's no way you would say no to this deal. You can't. And the prospect of playing with someone like De Bruyne, who puts things on a play for players, and like David Silva, you know what I mean?
It's hard to say no,
You'd
for
almost
sure.
play for
Yeah.
free to play with those players. You know what I mean? Regardless of what he's getting paid, you want to play with those.
Are they just going to walk the league?
No, I don't think so. It's just about to say. I still think that the team to beat, obviously, with the points difference between them and United last year. Liverpool have invested heavily, but I still think they're the team to beat. But I think it'll be closer. I think he's already thrown a few little nuggets in. Of, look, you know, let's not get carried away with ourselves just because of the records we broke last year. But there seems to be a real hunger within that dressing room, from snippets you've heard in the last week and the build up to the first Premier League game, from the Community Shield last week, from Kyle Walker, Company in particular, who's been there when they've won it and not retained
dropped
it.
off, yeah.
Whereas I think now those key players that have been there and not retained it, they're spreading the message. Look, you can't rest on our laurels here. Look at the way Liverpool have invested.
Yeah.
You know,
So what's the issue then?
for Man City's improving around them,
Okay, but-
and being able to replicate that type of standard, and also if they want to challenge in the Champions League, which we all know they do, certainly the hierarchy, can they do it on all those fronts? That'll be the key.
Okay, I hope you're right. I have fears of a 10-point lead by Christmas and a countdown.
I'm not sure. Let's move on to Liverpool then. Okay, well, we've just been chatting to them. Significant, and we've already mentioned, Joe, the type of recruitment. Impressive?
I think it's brilliant. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I think it is. I think they've done exactly what I said. It's been very incisive what they wanted to do. They addressed the places they felt that they needed improvement, and that they wanted a spine. He wanted to have a spine of a team that he felt he could rely on, and he's in the last two windows he's gone and do it with Van Dijk at the centre back.
Yeah.
Now the goalkeeper, midfielder he's improved, and then discussing Shaqiri. I think at Stoke he wanted to be main man and loved and everything. At Liverpool, is he going to be willing to take a back seat a little bit and be that player that comes on and creates things? Because I don't think he'll start. I don't think he's going to. He's going to have to be.
He looks leaner, by the way.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. And he's had a good World Cup.
He looks sharper.
Yeah.
And the one thing I seen him a lot at Stoke last year, and I think Gary Neville had a bit of stick for giving him stick during the World Cup, didn't he? I thought he hit the nail on the head. He was a big reason why Stoke got relegated, because of that attitude, that spread among certain of the Flair type players.
I'm better than this, basically.
Yeah,
was
felt
it?
he was
yeah,
no
above it.
tracking back, absolute luxury. And then what you see on the match of the day highlights is the overhead kick, this 50-yard diagonal, the shot from 25 yards that looks spectacular.
Yeah.
You watch the actual game, play him at 10 minutes.
So do you think Liverpool and the influence of Klopp
Yeah.
and the scale of the club, that'll straighten up his back a little bit?
You would think so.
I'd
And
imagine
if
so.
he only has 25 minutes, the spectacular things might just come out then, and that's the difference.
Like for 13 million, it's great business. 5-year deal, 13
It is
million.
good business.
Like in
Yeah.
today's market, you're worth about 4 million.
2, maybe.
4.5. But you mean like 13 million? That's loose change behind the couch.
It is, yeah.
But those signings that you've already alluded to, they've affected the starting lineup. It hasn't been like,
no.
look at the squad we've got. You look at that midfield area
Yeah,
now.
yeah.
I was a little bit, when Emre Can was leaving, I was thinking, I quite like him, and I think the age he is, he's only going to improve.
No.
Emre who?
Yeah.
No problem.
Yeah.
Milner we know will still compete. Henderson had a good
Will
World
compete,
Cup. they've got really good options in there, and we haven't even thought about Oxlade-Chamberlain. The fact that he hasn't even been spoken about because of these signings.
He's out until
it's a long
the
term,
season.
isn't it? Yeah.
Like that's the Spurs predicament. If Spurs want to strengthen their team, they have to spend about 170 million to get 2 or 3 players in. Liverpool have done it. Like if you're a Liverpool fan, this is really exciting.
Yeah, optimistic.
It is. It's very exciting.
Goalkeeping wise, obviously massive one.
Huge.
To get him in, what? He's a proper keeper.
But they've paid it. You know, they've paid for it. Like but they've done it.
Yeah.
It's funny because people always were questioning the Van Dijk one, how much they spent on him, and was it worth it? It will be worth it, you know, because he can be that player. He's an animal of a man. He's a huge guy, has a presence about him, has proven it in the Premiership for Southampton. Obviously not at the top level, but
and improved them straight away.
Yeah, straight away.
So like everyone's worth what you're willing to pay.
Yeah, of course.
And so like if you suddenly have cleared off those massive gaping holes, it's fantastic.
It's all relative, isn't it?
Yeah, totally.
But even right back, you look at the strength that they've got in depth now. Klein coming back in is like a new player. Lallana further ahead is like a new signing if he stays fit. Right back, Gomez can play there or centre half. I think he'll end up. Alexander Trent-Arnold. Serious options
they've got
there.
loads of options.
They've got a core 16 players, 18 players where you're thinking no problems apart from the front three. Where if one of them misses or two of them misses a sustained period of time, then I think it falls down.
And a manager who you feel is in control of the ship and dictating things. So is it them that you guys think are going to keep pace with City for most of the season?
I think that because of the way pre-season's gone, we're going to talk about Chelsea in a minute and Manchester United, but the way the pre-seasons have gone, theirs has just been seamless, isn't it? Business done early. Lots of the World Cup stars, some of them weren't at the World Cup, the likes of Van Dijk, Lallana. Obviously they had to wait for Salah to come back into it and Firmino a little bit later, but it just seems like it's just gone so well.
Yeah.
No worries, no negative press. Such a stark contrast to Mourinho and Old Trafford. Sarri having to deal with the way that their pre-season's gone, players wanting to leave, Courtois not turning back up for training, Willian, I can't get back 5 days late, all this type of nonsense.
Here's the one where I know you've got to move on. Key question for Liverpool. All those signings we talked about all work brilliantly on the basis that Mo Salah scores 1 billion goals again. You know what I mean? Like that ultimately bails them out in a lot of games. Like, is Mo Salah, based on what you've seen,
can he do it again?
Basically.
I think if he gets 2/3, 3/4 of the goals of what he got last year, then I still think it's a magnificent season. You fancy Oldham to score. I think Mane has looked electrifying in pre-season.
He's wearing
the number 10. He's clearly having it. At times, he looked like he was in the shadow last year for obvious reasons because Salah was that impressive. But Lallana coming back, I think, will be crucial. If he wants to tweak it and play a 2 and a 1 as him as this actual number 10, he has the opportunity to do that. He couldn't do that last year because all the midfielders were kind of similar, where then none of them were at their best playing with their back to goal as a number 10, where Lallana can do that. And Shaqiri, we've already spoke about. I'll be very surprised if he doesn't score 15 goals.
I don't think they need him to score as many goals as he did last year to be successful. I think more goals will come from the rest of the team, I think.
And defensively, they're going to be better.
So I do think that should, you would think it would make a difference. Obviously, time will tell, but...
So moving on to Chelsea, what's our thoughts on that? Sarri's come in from Napoli, a coach who I have to say loved watching his Napoli side. Anytime they were in the Champions League, would have watched very little Serie A games, but the way they play, full of energy, a real 4-3-3, full of energy. So it's a huge change from the three at the back we've seen under Conte for the last couple of years. That's been a negative camp for best part of the last season, really. Conte and the kind of niggle he's had with the ownership there, getting players in, not getting his own way, where he's been tested already in this pre-season with, we already mentioned, Courtois, players coming in, players going. It hasn't been ideal.
He's only arrived late. He's had about 2 weeks with them.
It's been a tough one. Some of the signings they brought in, Robert Green obviously just been a third choice goalkeeper. Jorginho I did like, and I think he was number 1 on his hit list of players to come in, and Jorginho has even spoken pre-season about the way he's been having to explain to players what Sarri likes, what he expects. I think him and Kante in midfield, and now Kovacic coming in, huge energy in there.
Pat Nevin raised a slight issue or concern. Like, Pat often sees the game really well, I think. So Jorginho, if they're going 4-3-3, Sarri's way. So it was him as the central of that 4-3-3.
And legs around it.
And you're suddenly saying Kante over here. He wasn't sure about the balance there. He didn't love it at first glance anyway.
The issue I think you're going to have is that he likes Jorginho to be the one to drop in deep and orchestrate in that first phase of pass.
Yeah.
So if that's going to happen, he's got to be the defensive one. I think it's fairly similar. He starts that because he's better in possession than Kante. And as it develops, he starts to roam, and then it's just a bit of a switch, and Kante slots into that defensive line and one being able to cover. I think it'll work itself out, but I can certainly see where he's coming from.
Yeah, I can totally see it, but Kante just seems to have that instinct to get himself back into that position regardless.
It might happen naturally.
Yeah, I think it does happen naturally for him. You see him, even in the World Cup of France, he's always just that player that's always just there covering the back four, and even if he's not starting there, he just seems to drift back into that area when he just kind of smells out danger, doesn't he?
Yeah. The goalkeeping situation, Courtois out, no real surprise, year left in his contract, family still living in Madrid, so was eager to get back, and he's obviously pushed it through. I haven't got a problem with that, I have to be honest.
No,
well, I mean, you got to look after yourself.
Look after yourself. He's playing for Real Madrid. The last year, they win the title, and then go into last year, it was a bit of a nothing season. If I was a top player like Courtois, like Hazard, and you're looking at the possibility of going to a Real Madrid, a Barcelona, I think it's a no-brainer.
No, it's no-brainer.
Chelsea fans won't like to hear it,
course,
obviously.
it's
to take finances out of the equation, because it's not an issue at Chelsea. They get paid very, very well. I don't think Courtois will be getting a serious increase. I'm sure he's had a decent contract, but no problem with that whatsoever.
No.
The problem with Chelsea is that the last few seasons they've been at a peak and then they've dropped so off with the next season. It's just been like a roller coaster. It
seems like a toxic dressing room.
Yeah.
It's like they decide on a whim, we're not at it this year.
Yeah.
It's like Hazard says, right, I'm not trying for the rest of the year. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see if Sarri can get them playing like Napoli. It does strike me as like it'll be the first time after 16, 17 years, Abramovich actually will have a team he likes.
I know, to
Keeps
watch.
hiring managers that he shouldn't hire.
I know. Okay, move on. Man United, we've already spoken about Mourinho. Grumpy Jose, again, during pre-season. Got Fred in early. Good signing, in my opinion. I think he'll settle in very, very well if he wants to play that 4-3-3 as opposed to a 4-2-3-1. And if Pogba stays, which you would imagine he will be, because it's 1:15 now, and he's still not left the building. I think his agent's trying to orchestrate a better deal from there. What have you made of pre-season and the way it's gone and the way Jose's constantly been niggling?
I think it's been so highly publicised about it as well. That doesn't sit well with me either. It's been, I don't know whether he's just building up because he thinks that they can compete with, and he's gonna go in 3 months or something. I mean, it just seems that it's just unsettling to see how much he's complained about everything publicly. Like, it's one thing doing it behind closed doors and saying it, but the fact that it's been...
He gave Woodward a list. He's been very public with this. I've given him a list. He's going on like he's a 5-year-old girl, and this is Santa Claus. Get this, get that. You know, like here's the Argos catalogue. I want this, and this.
They're still number 3
Get
in
real.
the spending over the summer. They're 3rd highest.
Look, I know he wants Alderweireld. I know he wants Harry Maguire or one of them, and the latest one's being Diego Godin, whether that'll get done. You bought Lindelof last year.
Yeah.
Boy's already in. Smalling, Jones. Have any of these players improved under your watch? No, in my opinion.
No.
Like, he should be brought in front of the board and say, explain Lindelof to us.
Yes.
50 million. Like, in the first 3 weeks, he started saying, well, he was asked why isn't Lindelof playing in the league, and he said, well, he's more of a European player. And then he put him in European matches and didn't have a good season at all. Like, he should be hauled up and said, why did we spend 50 million on Lindelof? Why should we trust you?
50 million on a Carling Cup player.
Yeah,
basically.
Well, the jury's still out, isn't it? Obviously, in terms of the style of play, this constant niggling, it doesn't do the players any good. Fans are obviously a little bit panicky about what way the season's going to go. The style of play is a huge factor for Man United fans.
I grew up as a United fan, so I still have that residual kind of... They're still the first team I look for. My dad's a United fan, so we watch games together. Mourinho is the worst thing that's ever happened to this club. It's just miserable. All of the things that Bobby Charlton talked about, the reasons you wouldn't hire Mourinho, which is the infighting, the political nonsense, calling out players publicly, from Luke Shaw to everything else. Everything about it is toxic. Like, they're like a drain now. To be a United fan and have Mourinho there, it's like, it's just miserable. Like, you look at what Liverpool have with Klopp, and that's what a manager should be. Okay, you can't win every year, fans accept that, but everything about him is just grim, and it's either going to settle down now or we're heading for the traditional 3rd season meltdown.
Third season, see you later, Charles. I'm totally with you. I totally agree with that. Quickly on Arsenal, Unai Emery, in my opinion, was a very good appointment. There was big talk about Arteta, tentative talk about Vieira. I don't think this is going to happen overnight. I've seen a couple of their pre-season games, and he's starting to implement more of a structure, more of a focus on, okay, when we haven't got the ball, what do we do? Because for years and years, Joe,
slow down, say the players.
you know, it's been a bugbear of mine that Arsenal players have only been interested in playing when they have the ball, when they're in possession. Signs of it, the players, I don't think he's had huge finances at his disposal. I think Bernd Leno will start in goal ahead of Petr Cech. Socrates will probably start as a centre-half. And Torreira, who played well for Uruguay during the World Cup, is a good player. But I don't think it's going to be enough to finish in the top 4. I do think fans are going to have to stick with him for probably 2-3 transfer windows before we get a proper turnaround and where this club is going.
It'd be just interesting to see what Arsenal do now that Wenger is gone and he was there for so long. Will they turn into a team that don't get success? Will they get rid of a manager? Like, will they be that team now that because they want success from a new manager, will they want to push someone out the door straight away, or will they give them an opportunity?
I think they have to be patient.
You have to be. But
well, I mean, Man United gave David Moyes a 6-year contract. Made it to April.
Yeah, contracts mean nothing now, do they? When it comes to managers,
but they obviously had the intention of.
Yeah, the intention. Yeah.
Right, Irish players in the Premier League.
Yeah.
We want to go through this quickly because it's obviously been highlighted for a number of years now. The players we've got playing at the highest level. We've gone through this list. We've got Harry Arthur at Bournemouth. He could well move, by the way. If it's not going to be today to a Premier League team, it could very well be to a Championship team on loan to the end of the month. Duffy will certainly start. Then we've got the Burnley crew: Jeff Hendrick, Kevin Long, Walters, Brady, Stephen Ward. Robbie Brady picked up an injury a couple of weeks ago. I think Jeff, depending on the system, if he goes 4-4-2, at times he was left out last year. Big season for him, I feel, as well. Everton crew: James McCarthy, bless you, Joe, and Seamus Coleman. Seamus, I'm sure, will have benefited from a proper pre-season. You go down the list: Declan Rice, will he fit into the new manager's plans there? Shane Long, Southampton, can he guarantee a start? And then the new players, the Cardiff 3, Pilkington, Murphy, Greg Cunningham. I'd like to see Greg Cunningham being given a crack at the whip, still of good age. Cyrus Christie, we think, will start. For Fulham, Matt Doherty at Wolves. Conor Rowland was on loan last year at Portsmouth. So starter-wise, guaranteed, I'm saying probably 6 to 7.
Yeah, after looking at it, I was thinking 5. I think 5, 6 at a push. I was thinking guaranteed to start, like a name on the team sheet. It's just doesn't bear well for Irish football, does it? Like, it doesn't, compared to like when you were coming into the ranks.
I spoke to you yesterday on the phone, and you were saying about you'd played about 50 games for Spurs in the Premier League before you had an Irish cap.
I didn't get cap.
Who else was right back then, just Irish-wise?
At the time, I was actually Stephen Carr was at Tottenham, but I was playing. He'd been a few injuries, but I was playing ahead of him. Steve Finnan was there. John O'Shea was playing right back at Man U. You still had the likes of Jeff Kenner were probably still playing. Curtis Fleming was probably playing.
Wow.
You're shaking your head.
It's unbelievable.
This is right back. This is only one position.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, and I didn't get cap for Ireland. Flip that to now. Can you imagine a player that's played 50 times in the Premiership for Tottenham now?
If you played 3 times for Tottenham, you'd be strayed in.
Yeah. If you played,
we seen him with Declan Rice last year, didn't we? Got a few Premier League games.
Straight in.
We're now
rightly so, in my opinion, because he's a very talented player.
I know, but we're now suddenly talking about a 19-year-old as one of our most important players.
Yeah, and he's still not been proven in that. I mean, at the league for any length of time. So it's a.
Isn't it just an unfortunate consequence of the fact that it's become the richest league in the world by distance, and so it hoovers up all the talent around the world. Like England have the same problem.
Yeah, they do.
The Scottish Premier League starters wouldn't be so hot now. The Welsh Premier League starters, and
because there's huge hype around the English underage teams at the moment, doing so well, and rightly so. Yeah. But it's the next step is the problem.
Can they make
Phil Foden at Man City playing really well in pre-season? Will he get ahead of Bernardo Silva, David Silva? Probably not. I hope he gets blooded in, but it is a knock-on effect. I think it's far from ideal, but I'm okay with it. You know, this isn't going to change anytime soon, in my opinion.
No.
And we're going to move on to the Championship briefly in a few minutes. But the Championship is a very competitive league now.
Oh.
My issue is the top of the Championship and the bottom of the Premier League, which most of these players are playing, I think is fairly similar. My issue with our Ireland players at the moment is we haven't got a world beater. We haven't got a Robbie Keane to get the goals, a Damien Duff to conjure it up. There's all a much of a muchness in terms of ability level. So it's going to have to be a real team effort, working on units. It's been very, very difficult to beat. But the whole what's available Premier League level.
Well, at least we have a management team who are meticulous in their preparation and will...
Joe, that's not for today.
Forge us into it.
We will get there. We will get there. Okay, let's move on to the Championship. I was over there, done 4 games in the last few days, got to see a lot of the teams. Friday night, Frank Lampard's first venture into management. I think it was exciting for the league. Got an idea of how his team is going to play. What did you think of it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It wasn't that pretty to watch, was it? Like, it wasn't an amazing football match, but I think they did well. They stuck at it. They were determined. They seemed to have a bit of shape and a bit of, togetherness about them. And his passion on the sideline was there for everybody to see. And he seems like a very hard-working guy. I've played against him quite a lot, and from the stories you hear and from what we told about him, he's always, even said himself, he's had to work hard throughout everything and put everything into it. And I think he'd be the same with Derby. And I think it's a great thing for young managers to be given a chance. I think obviously he's got a huge name in football, so someone like him is going to get a chance ahead of other people, but he could be a bit of a pioneer in the sense that teams are going to look to bring players almost straight out playing into it.
He's put his I've got to say, he's put his reputation on the line. Could have easily gone down a different route. I think you've hit the nail on the head in terms of his work ethic. Yeah. This isn't a player who at 18, 19 was banging in 30 goals a season and you have to put him in the first team. He was a box-to-box midfielder at West Ham in the U team, went on loan to Swansea. He's grasped the opportunity and he's grafted all his career. The longevity and what he got out of his career, I think he maximised it. Not all players can do that.
No, yeah, absolutely.
And I think you're seeing little signs with his team. Look, first and foremost, you work your absolute off, or else you're not on the team. And I think we've seen that. I agree that it wasn't a great spec. It was the first game.
Yeah, it was the first game. It's always tentative and stuff. Yeah, of course.
But good start. What did you think of him going into management?
Brilliant. I loved him as a player.
Did you?
Adored him. I loved everything about him. I loved how he grafted. I loved the way he played. I loved as a midfielder. I mean, it's great that you mentioned you played against him. I would just, when Chelsea were on the attack in the opposition area, I would just watch him.
Where he'd get to?
Honestly, in each attack, he'd make about 6 different runs. Yeah. Most players make a run.
Tracking them, John.
I was just going to ask you, because he'll dabble into the box. Most players ball didn't come. It's like, I'd made my run. Yeah. In fairness, didn't come. He'll check back out and come back in and check back out and come back. And something will just fall for him. And I just, I
found Gerrard harder to mark because he would make the run less. I think with a midfielder, he's actually got one with him. Bryson plays midfield.
Yeah, very good.
He makes that run time again. So you know he's coming. And Frank Lampard was the same. You know, as the play's building up down that side of the pitch, I'm not taking my eyes off you, Paul, because I know you're going.
Not gonna be there.
I know you're going. There was only one time, I'm with you, utmost respect for him. There was one time we were losing at Stamford Bridge, which we normally did, whatever team I played in, and he was doing keepy-ups when they were about 4-0 up on the halfway line. And I ran about 30 yards to try and have him. And he gave the ball away and I just missed him. And then, to be fair, I was going crazy at him because I thought it was disrespectful. And he actually apologised and said, sorry, but...
Because that's not really I wouldn't associate him with that kind of nonsense.
Exactly.
Yeah, you wouldn't have put that.
As if the penny drop, I shouldn't be doing that. I'm taking the piss here a little bit.
But the way he played, it was a statistical inevitability. He was going to get in the end of something.
Yeah. Because if you do so much, you're going to...
He was 20 goals a season. No, right centre midfield.
Chelsea's all-time top scorer.
It's ridiculous.
Scoring that many goals from midfield, and he did it, 5 or 6 years in a row, which was unheard of. If you had a centre forward that did that now, how much would they be worth? How much would they be worth if you had a centre forward that scored?
Want to move on to Leeds, Stoke. Watched them on Sunday in the whole Bielsa revolution. Unbelievable appointment for the Championship. You're talking about a fella who 15 years ago was a revolutionary coach worldwide. You've got Pochettino looking up to him, Guardiola. Pochettino played under him. Guardiola looked up to his style, the way he would tweak tactics, revolutionary in systems, the way they evolved within a game. They've been able to tweak from different system to another. Fascinating coach. I have slight scepticism around it, whether he'll be able to reproduce that in the Championship with players of a lesser ability. Time and time again, we know how relentless the Championship is. But on Sunday, there was only going to be one winner.
Were they as good live as they were?
Phenomenal. Yeah. Phenomenal. So say, when you're at the game, obviously it's different. You can see the full picture, what's happening down one end of the pitch. And so let me talk about it. They beat Stoke 3-1. It should have been more. Ryan Shawcross, the right side of centre half of Stoke, was stepping out. In the midfield in front of that, I'm talking, they were mannequins. It was like Sabutio. There was no movement to try and get on the ball, and inevitably it was either a long hopeful ball up towards Spenicafobia or back to Jack Butland in goal. Stark contrast with Leeds. The rotations were phenomenal. The way they moved and worked it through the tours with a real pace to the game and penetration, runners in behind. It was phenomenal the way they set up. And if they can replicate that I'd be very amazed going into the winter months with the type of personnel they have.
And these weren't players doing that last year, clearly.
No, there was only 2 players difference to what was available last year for Leeds. So it shows good coach. Have to say, I watched the last pre-season game where they played with a back 3. They played with a back 4, and this is what he's known for, 3-1, 3-3 system and all types of mad tactics. The week before, in the last pre-season game, car crash.
Yeah.
Absolute car crash. Architects of their own downfall, giving the ball away in dangerous areas. So I'm sure that's what Stoke were expecting, but they nailed it on
to be able to change that though within a week to go, and you don't often see a manager start his team on the last game pre-season and change the formation before the first game. That's not often happening.
Were there any managers, once you got it 4 or 5 years into your career, who arrived and actually taught you so much about the game that you went, whoa, in terms of rotation, in terms of Bielsa-esque movement?
I don't know what Kells thinks about this. I've said before to you, I've been was disappointed with the level of coaching I got in my career. I think it's changed a lot in the last few years in football. Once I got to a certain age in football, 24, 25, it was as if
you left your own
you knew
devices.
everything. You can't be coached. I thought it was nonsense.
Yeah.
I thought it was absolute nonsense. I went to West Brom when I was 31 under Roy Hodgson. Some of the stuff I learned under him was phenomenal. The patterns of play, training, I've said this before, was monotonous. It was just, you've worked on them.
Replicating.
Phases of play, same. Ball goes to Kells as a right back. Here's what I expect as the midfielder. The timing, right winger comes inside. This is when you go out there. No, stop it. Your timing's off. Go again. You're like this. Oh my God.
Okay.
Oh my God. Gaffer, can we just have a 7v7? Can we just play a 5-a-side?
Yeah, that was a joke.
He used to walk in when he'd give us a 5-a-side at the end under
He thought it was wasted time.
Nonsense. It was just for us basically.
And if you synced it up on a pitch, you get the ball, you know you have to go there, right winger comes in. Would it work?
Phenomenal.
Would you keep the ball?
On a Saturday,
it was unbelievable.
It was the easiest I ever had it in the Premier League. The type of player I was, I needed options. I was never dribbling past players. I needed options on the ball. Every time I got the ball in midfield, 2-3 options.
Wow.
Just loved playing him. Was devastated when he left West Brom.
How often was it that literally everything you did in training would come to fruition in the game? Like it was unbelievable. Like when we had it, was so Bobby was the striker, pulled to the edge of the box.
Zamora.
Yeah. And you'd play it into him, and then
you make the runs off it.
Duffer would come inside, either Bobby would labour off to him for a shot, or you go on the overlap for a cross. And this was like happened so often.
This was rehearsed. You knew it was going to happen.
To a T. The other thing I would say as well is when I've played for managers as a lower Premier League team, when you're playing against the big boys, they give you the sense where we haven't got a hope here.
Yeah.
He didn't do that.
No.
All week it was still what we're doing. It wasn't, this is what they do.
He was never focused on the other team, was there?
No.
And the thing is, it would have been tough for a midfielder though, because there was 2 years in there.
Yeah.
And the level of ground you just had to cover, and the wingers. Fullbacks as well, but we were encouraged to go forward. We were always encouraged to be in a shape.
Slight caution.
Caution before you go. But for the wingers and the midfielders, the level of effort they were expected of you used to go up and down the pitch and cover in, and how much did he want you to screen?
Yeah.
Like to screen the back 4, so the 2 years had to cover. If you're playing against a 3, that screen pass always stopping. Like for us it was Dixon and Danny Murphy. Stopping that pass into the front man, stopping that pass.
Doesn't that show? Because it would be tempting as an outsider to go, well, Warnock, the old school managers, they're of a certain age. It's the Pochettinos and Guardiolas who are doing it. Roy Hodgson's of a certain age.
Yeah.
It just shows there's good managers and bad
Why is it a
managers.
different
I think that shows a lot about him, because you're right, he's of a certain age where you would expect him to be
4-4-2, do you think?
Yeah. Old school, played away up. No, constantly evolving. I think he showed it last year with Crystal Palace.
Yeah.
Okay, what have I got here? I'll tell you what I've got. I've got Wilfred Zaha. You've got to base your team around him because he's that good. So it's not a case of, I did this 5 years ago at West Brom, or I did this 8 years ago at
Copy and
Fulham.
paste.
Yeah, no chance. What have I got? This is what I'm doing. This is what we're doing as a team. Bang.
But you can tell that he's been abroad and managed in different countries, because he's taken it all with him. Like he's managed in Italy, he's managed in Sweden, so he's brought those things to his game over here. And like, not that everything's going to always work, but you've got a bit more of a knowledge in the game and from different areas.
Speaking of knowledge again, I want to show you this little clip, because Bielsa on Sunday doesn't do interviews. Okay, there was a big battle between Sky, Leeds for Bielsa to do this interview after the game. So this is what we got off Bielsa on Sunday.
Marcelo, what are you expecting from your first game in English football?
Estoy ilusionado y deseoso de que esto comience.
Ciao.
Very excited and I'm happy to be here. I am very happy that this begin.
You'll have learned a lot about your squad over pre-season, but will you really find out about them today in a game against the title favourites?
Su equipo durante la pretemporada ahora los va a conocer de verdad en la cancha. Yes, sí, lo que dice es cierto. Yes, you're right. Yes, you're right.
Oh, outstanding.
Yeah, amazing.
They better keep doing it.
It was quality, wasn't it?
If Sky are saying to themselves that was a disaster.
No.
That's gold. That's gold. That's TV gold, isn't it?
I swear. I had to stop looking because we're coming back to the studio and I was like, I'm going to have to stop looking at this because if I get the giggles, it's all going off
I know,
here.
you should have giggled. Outstanding innovation.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
That is amazing.
Brilliant. So whether he's done that on purpose to think, don't ask me again to do an interview. Does that translator not seeing previous interviews when you translate? You tell us what he said.
Yeah.
No, but look, take the translation, the English out of the equation. Encouraging start from him.
Is that his genuine level of English, or is this a Pochettino move?
I'm not sure. I spoke to a couple of the Leeds players, and it's been a bit of a. On Sunday, right, by the way, during the game, he sat on the ice bucket, literally like that, for the whole game. Zero emotion, nothing. Right. He had his coaches on remote controls. They were literally going crazy, pulling people into positions and all the rest of it. But on the flip side of that, here at training ground, goes crackers. Goes literally bang, bang. A little bit like maybe what Trapp would have been. We didn't get it. Yeah. But a little bit simple.
I thought there was much to get, but we didn't.
With that level of English to get across these slightly complex ideas is pretty impressive.
Exactly.
That is hard.
It's going to be difficult. Listen, that's all we got time for. Joe, thank you very much.
No, it was great, really interesting. Enjoyed it.
Kel's, you'll be in again soon.
Yeah, well, loved it. Thank you very much.
Lovely. We'll be back next Thursday at 12:30. Until then, take it easy.